Ladies and gentlemen, let us get right into what Todd Monken said today about the Cleveland Browns wide receiver room, because his comments carry real significance for understanding where this offense is heading and what the coaching staff believes it has assembled around Shedeur Sanders as the 2026 season approaches. This is not background noise. This is not organizational filler designed to fill a slow news day. This is the head coach of the Cleveland Browns speaking directly and publicly about the offensive infrastructure being built around his franchise quarterback, and every word he chooses and every assessment he offers deserves the careful examination that the full context of this offseason demands we apply to it. Todd Monken addressed the wide receiver room. And the fact that he is doing so now, at this stage of the offseason process, after everything the front office has done to rebuild that position group through the draft and through free agency and through undrafted free agent signings, tells you something important about the level of organizational attention being directed toward fixing the specific problem that contributed most directly to the statistical noise that has been used against Shedeur Sanders throughout this entire narrative. Battle. Because here is what the honest examination of this situation has consistently revealed. The receiver room that surrounded Sanders during his 7-game starting sample was a liability. Not a minor inconvenience. Not a group with a few rough patches that otherwise performed adequately. A genuine, documentable, observable liability that produced drops, route running inconsistencies, and the kind of separation problems that force a quarterback into tighter windows with less margin for error and that contribute directly to the turnover numbers that certain media voices have been citing as evidence against Sanders without ever honestly examining what produced those numbers in the first place. Monken knows this. He watched every snap. He has the film. He has the data from the helmet camera evaluation process that has been capturing Sanders' decision-making in real time throughout the offseason program. He understands better than anyone outside that facility what the receiver room cost Sanders statistically and how much of the negative narrative surrounding the young quarterback's performance is a product of the environment around him rather than a genuine reflection of his capabilities as a passer and as a football decision-maker. And so he went out and fixed it. Piece by piece. Through every available avenue. The draft produced Casey Consumption at 24 and Denzel Boston at 39. Free agency produced Tylan Wallace and the return of Jamar Thrash. The existing roster retained Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, Luka Flor, and Gage Levine. Undrafted free agency added Cole Wilson out of Baylor as an additional developmental option. And now Monken is standing in front of cameras and microphones and speaking publicly about this receiver room, which means he is satisfied enough with what has been assembled to make it a topic of organizational communication rather than a source of ongoing organizational concern. That shift in tone matters. Throughout the earlier portions of this offseason, the receiver room was one of the quietly acknowledged but rarely directly addressed problems hovering over the Cleveland Browns' offensive situation. Everyone who was paying honest attention knew it was a problem. The statistical record made it undeniable. But organizational communication around the position group was measured and careful in the way that organizational communication tends to be when a coaching staff is still in the process of fixing something rather than celebrating the fact that it has been fixed. Monken speaking about the receiver room now, at this stage, with the specificity and the directness that characterize.
Guys are trying to make our team want to be a Cleveland Brown. It's really cool. I think efficiency-wise, the guys handled the installs over the last couple of days at a really high level. They've got a coach-me-coach mentality, which you'd love to see. Guys that want to be coached, want to be pushed, and so it's been a lot of fun.
You had that, before the game, you had that helmetless period that kind of gathered them together before. What was sort of the message?
Well, it's an ACT period, which means alignment, communication, and technique. More of a mental sweat. And I get it, when you're in a competitive environment, it's hard to get players to what? Tone it down, right? And we'd had 3 of those periods previous, including yesterday, and none of them were really at the tempo that I desired. So it was really poor on my part to allow it to keep going, but really at the end, it's more of a jog through, again, a mental sweat. Alignment, communication, technique, more than, really trying to tax our guys. Because at the end of this, the goal at the end of the mini camp is to make it out healthy. And I wanted to make sure of that.
Hey, Todd, I know we talked about your desire to have a
I think they're going to have to work there. And we're going to have to work some of the other guys we have on our roster, but we don't know that yet. Really hard in shorts. Obviously, Mike, who's been in the NFL for a number of years, has a great feel for how to fit certain runs, you know, how it's going to play out. He's certainly got that, which we saw when we wanted to sign him. But when you rep a number of groups, you're going to have at least two other guys that have some feel for playing the position.
Why do you think that position is so important to what you're trying to do?
Well, I think it's funny how the game evolves. It goes from under center, pro style, downhill run, and then high school football changes, college changes more spread. You don't see the old Mike linebackers, fullbacks, right? There's no Dick Butkus, Ray Nitschke's out there anymore playing Mike linebacker. You don't have fullbacks, you can't find them air raid wise. But you start to see this year that the number of tight ends that went higher in the draft, starting to see more and more teams to calm down defenses to get what? To get bigger bodies, tight ends, fullbacks, to create gaps, helps your play action game as well. So I just think that the game is always evolving, and I think it's kind of turning back. Well, what you guys see, which is a long, fast, anticipating being physical, got unbelievable range. Again, he's another one of those guys that
His public communication style when he has genuine confidence in what he is saying, reflects a coaching staff that looks at the collection of talent assembled at that position group and sees something meaningfully different and meaningfully better than what existed during the period that produced the statistical record being used against Sanders. Think about what that means practically for the quarterback who will be operating behind this rebuilt receiver room when the 2026 season begins. Every drop that previously became a turnover now has a deeper pool of reliable hands working to prevent it. Every route running inconsistency that previously created coverage confusion and forced Sanders into dangerous throws now has better technical execution working against it. Every separation problem that previously forced the ball into tight windows now has more diverse and more capable athletes working to create the kind of clean throwing lanes that allow a quarterback's decision-making to be expressed through clean execution rather than desperate improvisation. The 10 interception number that has been cited repeatedly throughout this narrative battle as evidence against Sanders becomes a fundamentally different data point when you account for the receiver room upgrade that has taken place since that number was produced. Those interceptions were generated within a specific set of environmental conditions that no longer exist. The protection upgrade through Spencer Fano removes the offensive line pressure that contributed to off-platform throws and compressed decision windows. The receiver room upgrade through the draft and free agency removes the route running and separation problems that produced the defensive opportunities those interceptions represented. The environmental conditions that generated the negative statistical outputs are being systematically dismantled and rebuilt, and the coaching staff speaking publicly about the receiver room at this stage of the offseason reflects confidence that the rebuilding has reached a point worth acknowledging. Now let us be honest about the work that still remains, because intellectual honesty demands acknowledgement of what has not yet been fully resolved alongside celebration of what has been accomplished. The receiver room is deeper and more talented than it was. That is documented and real. But chemistry between a quarterback and his receivers is not produced through roster transactions alone. It is built through repetitions. Through the lived experience of running the same routes in the same system against the same coverages over and over until the communication between the quarterback and the receiver becomes instinctive rather than calculated. Through the trust that develops when a receiver runs his route precisely and the quarterback delivers the ball to the spot where that receiver will be rather than where he was when the decision to throw was made. That chemistry is being built right now during the off-season program. Every minicamp rep, every organized team activity, every voluntary workout session contributes to the accumulation of synchronized experience that transforms individual talent into collective offensive capability. And the fact that Shedeur Sanders has been present for all of it, has been wearing the helmet camera and taking first-team reps and delivering throws to this rebuilt receiver room throughout the entire offseason process, means that the chemistry building work has been happening with the quarterback who will actually be running this offense when it matters. Jerry Jeudy's situation within this receiver room deserves specific acknowledgement in the context of Monken's comments, because Jeudy represents both the greatest potential upside and the most significant ongoing uncertainty within the position group.
Fast, anticipate him being physical, got unbelievable range. Again, he's another one of those guys that has a smile on his face every day, loves football. It's what we saw when we met with him at the Combine when he came here. Like, I think the sky's the limit. I mean, he wants to be an elite football player, and he goes about it the right way every day.
When you were in Baltimore, obviously it was your side of the ball, but you guys had safety Kyle Neal. How valuable is it to have that sort of player for that?
Well, I wouldn't say Kyle started that, because there's been a number of guys his size that enables you to be able to play dime and kind of have the size of a linebacker, but have the ability to cover. Kyle could gain 10 or 20 pounds and play will linebacker if he wanted to. A lot like the young man that's from South Carolina that's at the Seahawks. Very similar, kind of a hybrid position that allows you to do a number of things with them. Like any player that can do a number of things. The young man that plays for the Niners, the fullback, he can do a number of things, not just a blocking fullback. They can spread him out. He can catch the football. Very versatile. I think the more versatility you have in your position groups, I think you can keep those guys on the field and move them around as chess pieces. I think it's something we're looking forward to try and figure out where we can utilize him. No, it's not hard to see the guys that love football, is it? It's pretty simple. You show up to practice. You guys are looking at the same thing I'm looking at, right? Quincy Williams, he's been here, a month, and you can tell he loves football. You can see that with JJ. You can see a guy that loves to play football, comes in the building ready to go. He's jocked up, ready to go. I love that about guys. And you can just see it. You can just feel them. You can feel the guys when you come out to the practice field. They're ready to go. The music's going. They're fired up, and those guys are fun to coach. Well, you can see his catch radius. That's what you can see. He does have quick feet, getting off.
When Jeudy is engaged in performing at the level his talent clearly supports, he is the kind of receiver who changes what a defense has to account for on every play, who creates the kind of matchup problems at the top of the route tree that open up everything underneath for other receivers, and who gives a quarterback a legitimate big play option that keeps safeties honest and defensive coordinators uncomfortable. That version of Jerry Jeudy, present, engaged, performing, and building genuine chemistry with Sanders through consistent practice participation, is an enormous asset to this offense. The question surrounding Jeudy has always been about the engagement and the presence, not about the talent. His mini-camp absence generated real concern. His relationship with the organizational transition happening around him has been an open question throughout this process. And Monken speaking about the receiver room in a way that reflects confidence about what the group can become is implicitly a statement about what he expects from Jeudy in terms of presence and performance as training camp approaches and the genuine competitive evaluation of the 2026 roster begins in earnest. Casey Consumption and Denzel Boston represent the new blood in this receiver room, the freshly drafted additions whose energy and competition will elevate the standard for everyone already in the building. New players entering an established room with something to prove create the kind of internal competitive pressure that prevents veterans from becoming comfortable and that pushes every player on the depth chart to justify their spot through daily performance rather than through past reputation or contract status. Both of them were selected with specific intention and specific purpose within the offensive framework Monken is building, and their presence in the room from this point forward changes the dynamic of what every other receiver on the roster needs to demonstrate to maintain their standing. Isaiah Bond's development throughout this offseason has been one of the quieter but genuinely encouraging storylines running through the Cleveland Browns receiver room narrative. Bond has been present. He has been engaged. He has been the receiver whose name has appeared most consistently in the reports and the footage coming out of practices and mini-camp sessions as a player Sanders has been connecting with during the evaluation process. That consistency of presence and that growing connection with the franchise quarterback represent exactly the kind of developmental arc that a younger receiver needs to establish himself as a legitimate contributor within an NFL offense. The addition of Tylan Wallace through free agency and the return of Jamar Thrash provide the depth that ensures this receiver room is not dangerously thin if injuries or performance issues create attrition during training camp and the preseason. Depth is not glamorous. Depth does not generate highlight clips or draft night excitement. But depth is what keeps an offense functional through the inevitable adversity of a 17-game NFL season, and its presence in this rebuilt receiver room reflects the comprehensive and layered approach to roster construction that has characterized everything Andrew Berry has done since the draft began.
Well, first thing was, as you talked about footwork, cadence. Getting used to our cadence early on, and he was better today, but this morning and yesterday, choppy with his cadence. So just getting our guys into a rhythm at the line of scrimmage. I think that was the second thing you need to work on. He did a nice job today of working through his progressions. I did like that part of it. We're gonna have to be really diligent in trying to tighten down his release when you're talking about check downs, taken from as long of his release, or long release he has, to really just being able to dart it, to get it quickly out of his hands into the hands of, whether it's a running back or a tight end. But I've been super impressed with his ability to really learn, process, and take it to the field. And then getting through his progressions, really impressive. We've had guys that, if they've asked, but in today's day and age, it feels like everybody's got one. They've got a quarterback coach they like to go to, which is great. I think the game has improved greatly with whether it's offensive line tutors, as I would say, or wide receiver tutors or quarterback guys. I think just over the last 10 or 15 years, even when I was at Georgia, and you'd see younger players come to summer camp, and how much better they are at throwing the football and receiver route running. And that's a credit to those that work with guys when we don't have an opportunity to work with them, which stinks. I wish we got them year round, but we don't. And it's awesome that our guys want to go to those guys and improve. Well, we'll see how that all works out. I mean, for the purpose of rookie minicamp, we're going to put him at tackle. We think long-term he's a tackle, but we're certainly going to give him an opportunity. He's going to have to be a swing player. He's going to have to be able to learn tackle, and we're going to have to see what we have at guard. And everything will play itself out. Parker at center, right? Elton at center. Is how that's going to play out. And some of the other guys that we have, Kingsley and Kendrick, that are here, along with then, Titus, right? So all that'll play out. It's just, I like where we're at because we've got more pieces to work with.
Monken addressing all of this publicly, stepping in front of cameras to speak about the receiver room with the confidence and the specificity that his comments reflect, is the coaching staff's way of communicating organizational satisfaction with what has been assembled. It is the head coach saying, without using those exact words, that the problems which existed around this quarterback during his starting sample have been addressed with genuine seriousness and genuine resources, and that the environment being built for the 2026 season represents a meaningfully different and meaningfully better opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to express the full range of his capabilities as an NFL quarterback. That is what Monken's comments about the receiver room actually mean when you read them in the full context of this offseason. They are not just a routine coaching staff update about a position group in transition. They are the latest signal in a consistent sequence of organizational signals all pointing in the same direction, toward an offense being built deliberately and comprehensively around a specific quarterback, toward a 2026 season in which that quarterback will operate with better protection and better weapons and a better overall environment than he had during the period that produced the statistical numbers his critics keep citing, and toward a competitive evaluation through training camp and the preseason that will demonstrate what Sanders is capable of when the environmental conditions around him reflect the organizational investment that has been made throughout this entire offseason. Shedeur Sanders is still working. The receiver room is upgraded. The protection is elite. The coaching staff is speaking publicly about what it has built with the confidence of people who believe in what they have assembled. The preseason cannot get here fast enough. Because when it does, everything Monken has been building and everything the front office has been investing and everything Sanders has been preparing for will be on the field simultaneously for the first time, and the football world will see what this offense is actually capable of when all the pieces are in place and the quarterback operating within it has the support he needed and deserved from the beginning. The work continues. The receiver room is ready. And number 2 is preparing to show everyone exactly what a fully supported Shedeur Sanders looks like in a Cleveland Browns uniform. That is the story underneath the story. And it is the one that matters most heading into training camp.